Here are the 21 MMOs coming in 2025 and beyond, starting with Blade & Soul Neo. And yes, Blade & Soul returns with a Neo version, still free to play. It's a fantasy action MMORPG that will highlight the action combat of type martial arts with always female characters with strong attributes and that, you know. So we're taking the DNA of the original game, adding graphical and gameplay improvements. The release is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. It's very soon, and of course I'll offer you some. Alright, another game too, the one I might be looking forward to the most in the upcoming releases is Ages of Creations. I could talk about it for hours someday. I promise you I will make a dedicated video to review this MMORPG. We are dealing with a game that offers a constantly evolves, where a player's actions, whether solo, in a guild or whatever, will directly influence the environment, city development, NPCs, AI and so on. So it really is a game that mixes a little of the sandbox and theme park, a good blend of both with plenty of possibilities in trading, crafting and PvP. And the PvP currently it is in closed alpha phases for those who have founder packs. We will wait a bit longer, hoping it opens in beta soon. Among the most anticipated games expected to arrive in 2025, we can mention Chrono Odyssey, which stands out for its trailers offering truly stunning graphics. It's a game that features a dynamic combat system, an open world, a fantasy universe. It's a game that's already listed on Steam. If you want, you can already add it to your wish list. Well, it gives the impression of being in very classic high fantasy, a classic medieval fantasy, dragons, elves, dwarves, etc. fighting each other. But it's really the action combat aspect with Unreal Engine 5. It really makes you want to play. The game should be released in the last quarter of the year 2025. Here is another MMO that completely changes style. It is Anvil Empires. Anvil Empires, for those who know the game, Foxhole is its variant, is medieval type. As a reminder, Foxhole is a game that has been around for a few years now. It is a game in which hundreds or even thousands players connect during the day or in the evening to lead battles on a vast open world where each individual player contributes to the fight, whether directly on the front line or at the rear as a support, to make shells, deliver them and so on. Anvil Empires, it's a medieval version. The game is currently in closed alpha phase, and you will find this large-scale war that never stops, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It really makes you want to play. I really can't wait to get my hands on this game. It remains an MMO in a round. Any other style than the classic MMOs, but it's still an MMO. No date scheduled at the moment, but it is still in closed alpha phases. We can see some gameplay from time to time in the games that will bring back the old school hype that we can find in some titles currently. We can mention Monsters and Memories. Monsters and Memories is a game developed by developers who love retro, who love the late 90s, early from the 2000s, you know, the EverQuest, to refresh the name, the Asheron's Call, the Dark Age of Camelot, all those games you might have played if you are over 40 years old specifically. So we are back to a smile. It's not particularly sexy, but that's not what we're looking for in this type of game. We are looking for an old school difficulty. We are looking for games that really offer a community, social aspects and investment. We'll see what it will bring. It is planned to open to everyone in early access by January 2026. Come on, a heartfelt choice, a game I'm waiting for, that I'm following for years now. It's Pioner. Pioner really offers an atmosphere that I particularly love. Just a side note, I love the game Escape from Tarkov. I love stalker type games, and well, Pioneer is a kind of MMO FPS in a universe a little bit like Stalker. You will evolve on where a lot of strange things happen. There are mutants, there are monsters, there are zombies. There is a PvE phase where you will do quests like in a real classic MMORPG. Then of course PvP phases in which you will shoot against other players. We are offered the discovery of open world crafting, solo content, but also multiplayer. So an MMO FPS that I'm really looking forward to. The game should be released during the year 2025. Let's stay within contemporary games in terms of the universe with Ashfall, a game available on PC but also on mobile. By the way, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me, but you can feel it, you can see in the gameplay videos discovered in the trailers that it was designed for mobile. We can see that the interface is a bit mobile. We see that the gameplay seems to be ultra simplified, but why not for the players? A bit more casual, it can be interesting. Ashfall is a third-person view MMO shooter of the post-apocalyptic type after a sort of zombie invasion. We are in a dystopian universe. We will engage in PvE battles but also PvP. Currently the game is in the beta testing phase and should open soon. Another rather niche MMO is Eternal Tombs. Eternal Tombs is a fantasy MMORPG that is quite classic in its structure, with its entire system of open world bosses and world bosses, dynamic dungeons and so on. What sets Eternal Tombs apart from other classic MMOs in the genre, other medieval fantasy MMOs? It's simply that it's a game with game masters. Well, it's true that game masters were characters who evolved in the massively multiplayer online games 20 years ago to help players unlock them and hunt bugs. In Eternal Tombs, they promise us to have game masters, so people who work for the massively multiplayer online game and who will launch dynamic events based on server activity. There's the big news, there's the big point. Distinct what this Eternal Tombs offers. We'll see what it will bring. Currently, there are closed beta phases underway. Big hits, maybe anyway AAA. Will it break through? Will it offer us something interesting coming soon? Dune Awakening, a game that makes me excited despite sometimes gameplay beta images that cooled me down a bit technically. However, it seems to be quite interesting as it appears to be faithful to the Dune universe. So it's set in the Dune universe. If you've read the book or seen the movies, it might be interesting. It's a game that will offer a survival experience of conquest on the planet Arrakis. It's a desert planet where you will be able to do housing in an open world. That means creating your base, gathering resources, going on exploration. Be careful, it's a world that is quite violent and difficult. That means you will often die if you are not careful, and you will also fight in PvE but also in PvP to mainly collect the spice, an ultra rare resource. The game is expected to be released during the year 2025. Let's completely change concepts and universes with Bitcraft. Bitcraft is a game that has had several closed alpha phases. I was able to test one phase. Bitcraft is a game that puts the social and the sandbox. It's a game that emphasizes building on cooperation between players. It is really a rather social MMO. There is not necessarily combat, there is not necessarily of hunting for gear and so on. Actually, the idea of Bitcraft is that people will arrive in a complete world. It's more of a long-term social sandbox experience of mutual aid that can be interesting. Then, you know, this kind of sandbox game needs a good player base that stays for the long term so that it lasts over time. We'll see if that's the case. The game goes through closed testing phases and we are expecting a release soon in 2025. Now let's take a look at games inspired by Minecraft, especially Evercraft Online. Evercraft Online is a game I was able to try during an alpha testing phase at the end of the year 2024, a game that piqued my interest. In terms of gameplay, it clearly feels like Minecraft. It's the same way of playing, it's the same way of control your character, your inventory and so on. It is heavily inspired by Minecraft. It's an MMO that combines the creative aspect, the cooperation with other players, of course, world created in voxel, and then it's more of a theme park game with quests, professions and so on. The game may be interesting for fans of this Minecraft aesthetic. Be aware that there are regular closed alpha phases. Follow its development and try to sign up if you want to participate in these phases. The game should be released in 2025. Let's now talk about another game of this type. A game I have been presenting to you for years now that is constantly delayed is Hytale. Hytale is an MMO sandbox game, also very inspired by Minecraft, and it is a game that will notably allow customization and Modding, basically in Hytale you take the slightly Minecraft aspect in the voxel universe in managing your equipment, your inventory, your character, the battles and so on, except you transpose it into an MMO. So on servers accommodating hundreds or even thousands of players, but in addition to that, players will have control over the universe, meaning they will be able to import mods, import scripts, or even create custom scripts in the game. So in Hytale, players will have a sort of toolkit enabling them to completely modify the game experience. It can be a double-edged sword. In any case, the game is constantly delayed despite the anticipation of thousands of fans worldwide. No release date for now, whether in 2025 or 2026, let's cross our fingers. Among the big games that might make a splash soon, keep an eye on Soulframe. Soulframe is a cooperative RPG that's a hybrid MMO. It's a game created by the creators of Warframe, a superb MMO, science fiction action MMO that you probably already know. This game, Soulframe, is focused on exploration, cooperation. So certainly it's not an MMO in the sense that you won't encounter hundreds of newspapers. In open world, it's more of a hybrid RPG, but with thousands of players connecting nonetheless. To keep an eye on, the game should be released during the year 2025. Let's go back a bit to retro old school MMORPG, which doesn't lack charm. I want to mention Drakantos. We are really talking about an MMORPG, old school with gameplay that reminds me of Tibia, for example, or Raven Dawn, which you presented recently. It has a very retro style, but one that is intentional. I think it gets the job done. I think it's beautiful. I think it's interesting. So the advantage of having retro MMOs in their graphics is that you'll be able to insert quite a few features without suffering technically, meaning you have an average PC, you can play Drakantos smoothly while enjoying everything it offers. No release date for now, but you can still find it on Steam and you can wishlist it if you like. In MMORPGs, a bit more obscure, less known, less talked about, there is Bellatores. You can find Bellatores on its official website. It is not listed on Steam at the moment. It's an MMORPG, medieval with large-scale battles. What's really highlighted about this title, for which we have few visuals and also few gameplay or presentation videos, is that it will offer us truly epic realm versus realm battles on a large scale, similar to what could happen, for example, on Dark Age of Camelot, like what can happen, for example, on Tezo in Cyrodiil. Anyway, it really makes me want to, but with graphics a bit more advanced and a bit more realistic. It is a game that was scheduled for the end of the year 2024 and will therefore be postponed to 2025 to watch closely. It is an open, persistent game where each player will be completely free to forge their own destiny. We are in the pure tradition of sandbox games with exploration, gathering, construction, and not necessarily a main quest to follow. It's up to you to choose your path. The game is currently in a crowdfunding phase and there is no official release date for now. Among the big free games coming soon, we can watch out for Perfect New World, and yes, probably Perfect World, and now you have Perfect New World, which is scheduled for the year 2025. We remain in a high fantasy universe, rather classic, except that we are going to transpose the action found in Perfect World, which is a bit retro now, with its tab targeting. Here we are moving into much more classical action combat. More dynamic with, of course, next generation graphics. The game should therefore be released in 2025 as free to play. Okay, a little known game that might be interesting. It's Persist Online. Persist Online is an MMO survival zombie with this voxel and high polygon aspect. We are in a world open post-apocalyptic after a zombie invasion where the gameplay is really centered on survival, cooperation. Players will need to help each other fight hordes of zombies, feed themselves, heal, craft items, loot, explore, and so on. I told you, is in this big polygon atmosphere. There you go, you have to like the style, but why not? In any case, it's worth trying and keeping an eye on. Among the big titles coming that we know, few things still that will come, I think, rather in 2026. And again, we can already mention Archeage Chronicles, which is simply Archeage number 2. I remind you that Archeage, the first of its name, is officially dead. It's over. What a pity. It was an excellent game that was mishandled by its publishers and that we tried to extract money from players. It's a real shame. Anyway, Archeage Chronicles shouldn't resemble Archeage. The first one, the game will offer a much more dynamic approach. The little gameplay we've seen makes it seem like a sort of supercharged Black Desert Online. We'll see later if Archeage Chronicles will offer the same depth of gameplay, whether in hosting, trade or PvE. The PvP, the Troupan War, the possibility to navigate and so on to become a pirate. In short, everything that made the charm of Archeage. It's a bit of a trend with all these games. Ultimately, a rather generic aesthetic. We're looking at a future free-to-play game, a future science fiction MMO shooter. How to say, I do not want brings bad luck to it, but for me I find it generic. Let's see what it will become. It is worth keeping an eye on. And finally, we finish with one of the, I think, most obscure games currently. It is the future MMO from Riot Games, the MMO League of Legends. Yes, you know Riot Games, the company that is in charge of LOL, League of Legends. They have been working for several months and years on an MMORPG set in the League of Legends universe. We have no information at the moment, so it's complicated to present it to you, but know that it could be a hit given the influence of Riot Games, a company with resources and the ability to do good. So we cross our fingers and hope to know a little more in 2025. In any case, the game should not be released before the end of the year 2026.